Our attention to cake baker Jack Phillips, who won a case in the Supreme Court last week. They basically shut down the Colorado Civil Rights Commission. Is it possible we could be reading too much into what was decided last week?
Well, I don't know. It depends on what somebody says they're reading into it. But let me say this, brother. Listen, that's a fair question you asked, but here's the deal. Now, I want your audience to hear me out on this for a few minutes. And again, this is just my opinion and my analysis, okay? But I'm usually 100% correct in everything I say. Pause for a laugh.
Yes, pregnant pause.
Okay. Yeah, I'm being sarcastic, folks. But listen, here's I've given a lot of thought to this. I've been on the forefront of opposing gay marriage, not opposing gay people. I mean, not being, a gay hater, but just, homosexual marriage is just, I stand on the Word of God. It's not biblical. It just isn't. And it causes this aggressive, radical, what I call homosexual agenda. It causes these kinds of societal upheavals. Now, let me explain what I mean. So we've got this decision. I've got something good to say, very positive to say about this decision, and then something a little more negative, or something a little more introspective. And so please hear me out. Here's the deal. On the positive side, we just had a 7-2 Supreme Court decision where they reversed the decision of a state's aggressive action against a Christian business person. And truly, that's what this was about. And the Supreme Court said so. It really wasn't about just any old business just blatantly sticking their finger in the eye of a patron. It was about, the Supreme Court said this in a 7-2 decision, that the key reason that they came to this decision to reverse the course was that the Colorado officials, I think they were city commissioners, county commissioners, it was that they showed, quote, elements of a clear and impermissible hostility towards the owner's religious beliefs. Now, that's huge, guys, because what the Supreme Court has done here, now see, the mainstream media, they are really trying to play this down. Like, well, okay. See, they were shocked by this. They thought the Supreme Court was going to uphold Colorado and say, no, you can't do this. But not only did they overturn it, but let me say it again. It was 7-2. When's the last time we've had a 7-2 decision out of the Supreme Court?
Good point.
You see, this is huge. Okay, now there's a negative side to it, but hang on. But right now I'm still on the positive side. So, and their reasoning was you can't openly be hostile towards a business owner because of their religious beliefs. You can't do that in America. You can't. Now, one of the pieces of evidence that the court referred to was when a Colorado commissioner who was responsible for leveling this charge against the cake baker said, quote, the court said, quote, he disparaged Phillips' faith as despicable. And see, the Supreme Court said, whoa, wait a minute. If you want to pass a law and then hold a business owner to that law, it has to be done without consideration to your feelings about that business owner's faith, you see. And so when they passed a law basically aimed at targeting Christian business owners and then held Phillips accountable to the law and then called his faith despicable, can you imagine a Colorado County Commissioner or a city commissioner calling a Muslim business owner and saying, your faith is despicable, or a Jehovah's Witness or a Mormon no, you can't even imagine that. This is a targeting of Christianity and a Christian business owner, and the Supreme Court said, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can pass a law, and we'll tell you whether it's constitutional or not. You can hold people accountable to your law, and if they appeal it, then we will determine something. But you cannot pass a law for the purpose of disparaging someone's religious beliefs. You cannot do that in America. Look, you can do that in the Middle East. You can do that in 57 Muslim nations, but you cannot do it in America. So that's huge, guys. The other thing is this. This brief argued, the Supreme Court, that they say, quote, that they must hold that religious dissenters from same-sex marriage have the same liberty to live consistently with their identity. Now, that's huge because, again, even though they didn't give a blanket permission, if you will, for a Christian cake baker to refuse service for a gay wedding, for example, but what they said, they've really set it up. In my humble opinion, I've spent years in law enforcement. It doesn't mean I'm a lawyer or a constitutional expert, but the Supreme Court, I mean, they've got some strong language here. They said that, look, you cannot, you've got to give Mr. Phillips the same liberty to live consistently with his identity as we're trying to give these homosexual people. He says you've got to give them that. You cannot separate people like that. And then this brief went on to say the classic American response to deep conflicts like that between gay rights and traditional religious faith is to protect the liberty of both sides. And then it goes on to say the very arguments that underline protection of same-sex marriage also support strong protection for religious liberty. Religious believers and same-sex couples each argue that a fundamental component of their identity and the conduct that flows from that identity should be left to each individual, listen to this, free of all non-essential government regulation. Again, guys, good constitutional lawyers who will argue cases in the future with these kinds of decisions are going to refer to this Supreme Court decision and their language that says, look, you can't just have a state like Colorado attacking Christianity, calling this business owner despicable because he's a Christian, and then punishing him with a law that protects one group over another. Now, does all that make sense before I go to the negative side?
Makes total sense, Carl. Let's hit the negative before we go to break.
Okay. All right. You want me to hit that before we go to break?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The bottom line is this, though, guys. Here's where we are. And this is why it gets very complex. Because the fundamental problem is not that the gays wanted their cake baked, and it's not that the Christian said, I just can't do it, it's against my beliefs. And it's not even that this dude from Colorado who was making this decision against the cake baker said, your religion is despicable. Now, those are important elements. But the problem is, our culture, because of the overall silence and political correct position that the church has taken. Jesus said, if you lose your saltiness, you will be trampled underfoot. So in 2015, the Supreme Court, a much more liberal one, trampled underfoot the entire institution of marriage, the entire historical institution, societal institution, American institution, and most importantly, biblical institution. They trampled it underfoot. And that's the bottom line. Now watch. Here's why I'm saying it gets complex. Because what if that cake baker, who's Caucasian, what if a black couple, a man and a woman, walked in and said, hey, we want you to do our wedding. And said, I'm sorry, we don't serve black folks. Mm-hmm. Okay. What would we be talking about today? We would be saying, you know what, that cake baker needs to be put out of business. Well, of course. Well, why? Well, first of all, it's unbiblical to have that treatment of people based upon their skin color. But secondly, from a secular standpoint, watch this. The law says you can't do that.
Exactly. Okay.
Well, for him to deny a homosexual couple, that is not unbiblical. In other words, he's taking a biblical position of defending marriage. But what? But the law of the land says if you're in business to bake cakes, you can't just indiscriminately decide who you're going to bake them for. Now, the government doesn't own your business. It's a private business. This is one way of looking at it. It's a private business. But on the other hand, you can't tell a black couple or an Asian couple or a Hispanic couple. You can't say, no, we don't serve your kind in here. Okay, so there's where we are, guys. Now, for example, you say, yeah, but he should be allowed his religious beliefs. Okay, do his Christian beliefs say that fornication is okay? Well, no. Do his Christian beliefs say that adultery is okay? Well, no. So does this same Christian baker refuse to bake cakes for people who were shacking up together before they got married? Does he refuse to bake cakes for an adulterous wedding? In other words, somebody left their first spouse because of an adulterous affair, and now they're going to remarry. Do they refuse to bake those cakes? Do they refuse to bake cakes for people who who are not virgins before they marry? And how would they know? You see what I'm saying, guys?
Yeah, it's much more complex than we would like to think it is on the face.
Yeah. So my point is, this thing is not over with yet. There has to be somehow a biblical, moral, constitutional middle ground here. I don't really know what it is yet. I'm still thinking and praying hard about it. The bottom line is the Supreme Court decision was much more powerful than the mainstream media would have us to believe. They are horrified by this decision. The leftist media, they're the ones continually saying, oh, this doesn't mean that much. This is no big deal. It's not what you Christians think it is. No, actually it is. Actually, it's exactly what we think it is. Because they left language. The language of their brief is very clear. You cannot pass regulations that are non-essential to target a person's religious belief, a business owner. You can't do that. So I don't know. But see, here's the thing. Here's the Supreme Court correctly identified the base problem, and that was this particular Christian baker was targeted by a radical movement and called despicable for the purpose of putting this despicable Christian, quote, in his place. For example, I wonder what would happen if a Christian went into a Muslim bakery and said, we want you to do our wedding, bake all the stuff, and put all these scriptures about Jesus is Lord and Jesus is the only God, and put all that all over our cakes. I wonder what would happen.
Yeah, interesting question indeed.
I wonder if a Christian went into a cake shop owned by homosexuals and said, we want our cake made, and we want you to put Leviticus passages on our cake that speak about homosexuality being a sin, and take them outside the camp and stone them, for example. Wonder what would happen. Would the homosexual cake bakers refuse to do it? Would they be shut down and fined and sued? See, this is a very, very complex issue.
It is indeed, and round two, I'm sure will happen real soon. You're listening to Stand Up for the Truth. Pastor Carl Gallups. When we come back, is the